You're sitting in a restaurant you chose specifically because it doesn't have prices on the menu. Your watch costs more than your first car. Your shirt is tailored. Your posture is perfect. And somewhere between the second course and the third, you notice the couple 2 tables over. He's wearing a faded polo. She's in a cardigan that's clearly been washed 100 times. They ordered water. They're splitting something simple. They look relaxed in a way that makes you uncomfortable, and you can't figure out why. You lean back in your chair and feel the weight of everything you're carrying. The reservation you made 3 weeks ago, the car parked outside that cost you $1,100 a month before insurance, the apartment you upgraded into last year because you got the title, and the title needed a zip code to match. You are performing a life that looks like winning. And the couple in the faded polo own the building you're sitting in. You don't know that yet. You won't know it tonight. But you'll find out eventually, the way everyone finds out. Someone will mention it casually. A mutual friend, a broker, a name dropped at a dinner party you weren't important enough to be invited to. And when you hear it, something will crack. Not loudly, quietly. The kind of crack that starts in the back of your mind and spreads slowly, until everything you believed about money and status and what wealth actually looks like doesn't hold together anymore. That crack is where this starts. Let's talk about what you were taught. Not explicitly. Nobody sat you down and said this, but it was in the air you breathed from the moment you started earning. The message was simple. When you make more, you should show more. Nicer things, better places, upgraded versions of everything, because that's what progress looks like. That's how people know you're moving forward. You internalized it so deeply that it stopped being a belief and started being a reflex. Raise hits the account, lifestyle shifts within 90 days. Not because you planned it, because it felt wrong not to. Like wearing old shoes to a new job. Like driving your college car into the parking garage of your new building. Something about it felt dishonest. Like you weren't honoring the promotion. So you upgraded. And the upgrade felt like a rival. But here's what nobody told you about a rival. It comes with a new bill. Not just the financial one, the psychological one. The one that says, now you have to maintain this. Now this is the minimum. Now this is who you are. And going below it doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like a confession. There's a pattern that plays out in almost every high-income life, and it's so consistent it might as well be a law of physics. You earn more, you spend more, you feel the same. So you earn more again, thinking this time the gap between income and satisfaction will finally open up. It never does. Not because the money isn't real, because the spending absorbs it before it can do anything, before it can become options. Before it can become silence, before it can become the thing that actually separates the wealthy from the high earners. And those are 2 completely different species wearing the same clothes. Think about water. Not a river, not an ocean, a reservoir. Somewhere up in the hills, behind a concrete dam. Still and deep and completely invisible from the road. Nobody drives by a reservoir and thinks about power. It doesn't move. It doesn't sparkle. It just sits there, ordinary and heavy and silent. But every house in the valley below runs because of it. Every light, every appliance, every heater in January. The reservoir doesn't perform. It supplies. Now think about a fountain. Downtown, public square, lit up at night with colored lights. Water shooting into the air. Catching the sun, making noise, drawing crowds. Everyone sees it. Everyone photographs it. Everyone thinks it's impressive. But turn off the pump for 10 seconds, and it's an empty concrete bowl. There is nothing behind it. No depth, no reserve, no capacity to sustain anything. It exists entirely as display. Most people build fountains. They earn money and they spray it upward as fast as they can. Visible, dramatic, attention-getting. And it looks incredible for exactly as long as the pump keeps running. The The moment the income stops, the moment the market shifts, the moment the company restructures and your title disappears, the fountain goes dry. Instantly. Completely. And everyone who is watching suddenly looks away because a dry fountain is just a hole in the ground. The people who actually have money, the ones you never notice, the ones in the faded polo at the restaurant, they built reservoirs. Slowly, quietly, without anyone watching. And they don't care that nobody watches, because the reservoir doesn't need an audience to function. It just needs depth. And depth takes time. And time requires the one thing that almost nobody with a high income is willing to practice. Not spending. Not saving. Those aren't the same thing. Saving is what you do with the leftovers. Not spending is a decision you make before there are leftovers. It's the choice to leave capacity unspent, to earn $1 and let it sit without converting it into evidence. That distinction sounds small. It's everything. Here's where something shifts. Not in the math, in the body. You know that tightness you feel on Sunday night? That low hum that starts around 4 in the afternoon and sits in your chest through Monday morning? You've told yourself it's just the adjustment, the transition from weekend to weekday. Normal adult stuff. Everyone has it. But notice when it started. It wasn't always there. It showed up around the same time as the second car, or the apartment with the view, or the membership you signed up for because someone at work mentioned it. The tightness isn't about Monday. It's about the fact that you need Monday. You need every Monday, every paycheck, every deposit, every month to land exactly on time, or the entire architecture starts to lean. Not collapse, not yet. Lean. Just enough that you feel it in your posture, in your sleep, in the half-second pause before you check your account. Someone who doesn't need Monday feels different on Sunday. Not because they're lazy, not because they don't work, because the work is voluntary. And voluntary work doesn't produce that hum. Only mandatory work does. Only the kind of work where the consequence of stopping isn't boredom, it's crisis. The couple in the faded polo don't have the hum. They stopped having it years ago. Not because they stopped working, but because they reached a point where every single thing they spent money on was a genuine choice, not a maintenance payment on an identity they'd constructed. And that's the thing that changes first, before the account grows, before the numbers shift. The identity has to crack. You have to look at the life you've built and separate what you chose from what you absorbed. The apartment. Did you choose it? Or did the promotion choose it for you? The car. Did you want it? Or did you want what it said about you? The dinners, the trips, the wardrobe, the watch. How much of it is desire, and how much of it is defense? Defense against being seen as someone who hasn't made it. Because here's the part that stings. The people who feel the most pressure to display wealth are almost never the wealthiest. They're the most anxious. Display is not confidence. Display is evidence presented to a jury you invented in your own head. A jury made up of coworkers and neighbors and strangers in traffic who aren't actually paying attention. You're spending real money to influence imaginary verdicts. The person with the reservoir stopped caring about the verdict. That's the shift. Not discipline, not sacrifice, indifference to the performance. Once you stop needing the world to confirm that you're doing well, the cost of your life drops so steeply that the math changes almost overnight. Let's look at what that math actually does. Take two people earning $170,000 a year. Same city, same age, same career trajectory. Person 1 spends $144,000 annually. Nice life. Nothing extravagant by their peer group standards. Saves about $26,000 a year. some in a 401k, some in a brokerage account. After 15 years with average market returns, they've accumulated roughly $720,000. Sounds respectable until you realize their annual spending is still $144,000. That $720,000 covers exactly 5 years of their life, 5 years of runway. After 15 years of earning and investing, they bought themselves 5 years of freedom, if everything goes perfectly. Person 2 earns the same $170,000, spends $78,000. Not a monk, not miserable, just immune to the upgrade reflex. They save $92,000 a year. After 15 years, they're sitting on roughly $2.7 million, and their annual spending is $78,000. That's 34 years of runway. They could stop working at 45 and not run out of money until they're 79, without a single additional dollar earned, without Social Security, without a pension, without selling anything. Same income, same city, same number of years. One person bought 5 years, the other bought 34. The difference wasn't earning power. It was the size of the fountain. And here's what makes this almost cruel. Person 1 looks more successful. Better apartment, better car, better everything visible. Person 2 looks ordinary, unimpressive, maybe even a little behind. And person 2 could buy person 1's entire life with 4 years of savings. That's the inversion nobody talks about. The visible winners are often the most trapped, and the invisible ones are often the most free. Not always, but far more often than you'd guess. Because freedom doesn't photograph well. It doesn't post well. It doesn't come up in conversation because the people who have it don't need you to know. Something happens to you when your money stops being committed, when it just sits there, unspoken for, without a job, without a destination, without a monthly obligation it needs to cover. You start to feel a kind of stillness that's hard to describe because you've never had it before. Negotiations change, not your technique, your body. You stop leaning forward in meetings. You stop saying yes to things that feel wrong because the cost of saying no used to be too high. Now the cost of saying no is nothing. You start choosing slower, not because you're indecisive, but because you can afford to wait. And waiting, it turns out, is the most expensive capability in any market. The person who can wait always gets a better price, a better deal, a better offer, a better life. Because patience isn't a personality trait, it's a financial position. Your voice changes, not the pitch, the weight. When you speak from a position where you don't need anything from the person across the table, your words carry differently. People feel it, even if they can't name it. There's a steadiness that only comes from having nothing at stake except your own judgment. Not your mortgage, not your car payment, not the school tuition deposit, just your judgment. That kind of clarity is rare enough that people mistake it for charisma. But it's not charisma, it's solvency. Deep, quiet, invisible solvency. The couple at the restaurant didn't have charisma. They had options. Options so numerous and so well protected that the entire dinner was irrelevant to their financial life. They could eat there every night for a decade and it wouldn't matter. But they won't. Because people with real options don't exercise them compulsively. They hold them. The way a chess player holds a strong piece in reserve. Not because they can't move it, because not moving it is more powerful than any move they could make. This is where most people destroy everything they've built. And I want to be precise because this is not a general warning. This is the specific mechanical failure that takes intelligent people with real money and turns them back into fountain builders. It happens after the shift, after you feel the stillness, after the account hits a number that used to seem impossible and you realize you're actually there. Something in you relaxes, not peacefully, dangerously, because the relaxation whispers something. You've earned it. You can afford it now. And it's true. You can afford it. That's what makes this moment so destructive. The math supports one upgrade, one nice thing, one reward for years of restraint. So you buy it, and it feels incredible, and nothing breaks. The account barely flinches. So you buy another, and another. And within 18 months, your spending has crept up 40%, and you don't even realize it because each individual decision was rational. Each purchase was affordable. But the floor moved, quietly, invisibly. And now you need the income again. Not for survival, for maintenance. The hum comes back on a Sunday afternoon, and you can't figure out where it went because you thought you'd gotten past it. This is how reservoirs become fountains. Not through one catastrophic decision, through a series of perfectly reasonable ones that collectively rebuild the trap you just escaped. The couple in the faded polo never had this problem. Not because they're more disciplined, because they never disconnected restraint from identity. They didn't see low spending as a phase they were enduring until they could afford to stop. They saw it as the thing that made everything else possible. The invisibility wasn't a cost. It was the product. The thing they were actually purchasing with all that unseen money was the right to remain invisible, to owe no performance to anyone, to walk into any room without carrying the weight of what they needed from it. The moment you treat restraint as temporary, as something you'll relax once you've made it, you've already lost. Because making it is not a destination. It's a condition. And the condition is maintained by the same behavior that created it. Stop the behavior, and the condition dissolves. Not slowly, faster than you built it. Always faster. There's a version of your life where nothing looks different from the outside. Same job, same city, same face in the mirror. But everything feels different underneath. The Sunday hum is gone. The half-second pause before checking your account is gone. The quiet calculation you run every time someone mentions a layoff, gone. Not because you have more money, because you need less of it. And the distance between what you have and what you need has become so wide that the whole game changed without anyone noticing. That's what the couple in the faded polo built. Not a fortune, a distance. A gap so large between their life's cost and their life's resources that nothing short of total civilizational collapse could close it. And they built it the same way everyone could build it, by refusing to let their spending be a scoreboard. By wearing the same cardigan until it was soft. By choosing the water. By sitting in a restaurant they owned and letting the person at the next table feel important. You remember the crack I mentioned at the beginning? The one that starts in the back of your mind when you find out who really has the money? It's not about them. It never was. It's about the question they force you to ask yourself. The one you've been avoiding since the first paragraph. If nobody could see how you spent your money, would you spend it the same way? That silence after the question. That pause where something in you already knows the answer, but doesn't want to say it out loud. That's the reservoir talking. It's been there the whole time. Under the fountain, under the noise, under the performance. Waiting for you to stop pumping long enough to notice it was already full.